Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Thursday, October 26th. We're going to take a look at two distressed EV stocks today, Lucid and NIO. If you are only interested in NIO, go ahead and look in the description below and you'll see a timestamp there so you can skip ahead. But for both of these stocks, I did a bunch of cleaning up of the charts and try to simplify things and to just sort of look at, what's important for this to try to stabilize or, God forbid, even try to reverse trend or even neutralize the trend at this point in time. So Lucid caught under this downtrend resistance for a very long time. That is the single most important thing to me for it to reverse trend. It needs to overcome that downtrend resistance and get distance from it. Absent of that, it's just going to continue to be caught in a spiral. Now, in order for it to get itself there, it will need to either stabilize and have some sideways motion and bump into it that way, or even try to rise and come up and see if it can battle with it that way. Now, if it does choose to rise, that 422 level is the nearest in most important level to me, and then 450-ish, and then about 5, and then about 547, as we see here. Those are the key levels as I see it. Now, it could also do something, to even just stabilize, like I said. And even if it pinned itself to this, say, like 420-ish level, 422, and kind of walked itself sideways, it would have to do that for a very long time to get there. But even if it did that, it would be better than just being super far away from the downtrend resistance and still just losing ground. I was looking at this and I was thinking, if we drew this in as a channel and we had a bottom bound to the channel here, right? You could have easily done that. It would have now fallen out the bottom of the channel. So it's fallen out the bottom of a down channel. So pretty rough situation here at the moment. Now, even the EMAs are pretty far off, getting some distance. We'll look at the Thinkorswim study in a moment, and that may show us that maybe that actually is helpful in navigating a path back for Lucid. But that's just to say that if it does start to stabilize or get some motion upward, it would be a bit of a percent gain before it even ran into the 8 EMA to provide that first level of resistance. Now, in the Thinkorswim study, let me try to zoom us back out here. Let me go here and here. Okay, unfortunately, there's not a smoother way to do that at the moment. But in any case, we see for several weeks now, Lucid's been pinned. It tried to hold the mid-range of the channel, right? And as soon as it lost that, it's just been pinned between the mid-range of the channel and the lower bound. And back here, it popped out briefly and found its way back to the mid-range. Now, however, it's popped out through the lower bound of the channel again and is much further out than it was back here. Now, if, at some point we would look for it to try to make its way back into the channel. Now, if it does that, we'll see if it does like what it did here and treats the lower bound of the channel as a resistance. If so, it's a pretty bad sign for the bulls. That means that the bears really still have a grip on it. There's a lot of bearish momentum there still. Same thing if it even gets into the channel and resists off of this red wave cloud and pushes back down, pretty bearish sign there. If it is somehow able to come in and muster the bullish energy to test the mid-range of the channel, this moves every time a candle gets put in. Right now, that would get it all the way up to 483. By the time it gets there, that won't be where the mid-range is. But regardless of where it is, being able to come in and at least test the mid-range of the channel like we saw back here, that's at least a better situation in terms of perception, in terms of significance of the bearish versus bullish momentum, than just treating the bottom bound of the channel and the red wave cloud as resistance. That's sort of like worst case scenario. For a trend, at least. So, we see on the histogram here, bearish momentum still appearing to pick up. So we'll see. Obviously, earnings are coming up. Maybe that will provide a catalyst to try to pull in some volume, some bulls, and stabilize, neutralize, or reverse the trend. Maybe, of course, it could have an equal but opposite reaction, and it could really depress the stock further. I don't know. We'll have to see, but it does have that strong catalyst coming up in the near future. Now, moving on to NIO. NIO here is caught under a couple of downtrends itself. It has a long-standing one back here. Right? This one initiated way back in early of 2022. It's pushed off of this several times, but that's quite far away at this point. It's now caught under a new near-in downtrend resistance, and if it continues to consolidate in this area, it will sort of descending triangle itself out, but it would have to maintain above this like 730 zone in order to reach that. Now, that could provide it an explosive move one direction or the other. I tend to look at that type of motion as relatively bearish, but it could certainly come here and it could pop to the upside. You still have to wait and see. Obviously, it's not a crystal ball. It's not a 100% setup, of course, but that's sort of the critical moment that NIO could have coming up, and that's if it can continue to hold this like 730 support. We'll see. There's also a gap up here still that initiates at about 960, fills at about 1022. So as a percentage change for it to even get in that gap, much less fill the gap, that would be quite a solid recovery, contextually speaking, I guess. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But those to me are the most critical things. And we see also here this big sad face that NIO made when it dipped down here to 7 and had this nice big run up. And then it has basically lost almost all of the price that it gained and has just made this big sad face. And it's basically down here, but the question is it now going to double bottom in this area, right? This was a critical zone here. It did have this brief dip down to 7, but this is where it stabilized. If you look in this range here, this is where it stabilized. Last time it made this pretty impressive run. Now, not impressive given the life cycle of NIO, but impressive in terms of like percentage gain, right? That was over 100% gain in price there from 7 to 16.18. So we'll see if this zone can continue to be magical, or if it risks doing that thing that I worry about sometimes, going to the well too many times. In other words, getting to a certain price point and expecting the bulls to continue to step in and buy at that price. Eventually, do the bulls just run out of them, and or they run out of money? I don't know. Now, flipping over here to the Think or Swim study, let's pop NIO on here. We can see also pinned between the mid-range here in the bright blue and the lower bound of the channel for several weeks at this point. At least NIO is still in the channel. It's trying to sort of work sideways here. If it were to be able to come up and try to test the mid-range of the channel again, depending on when it did that, that could get it back into the 8s. But we'll have to see. Obviously, that mid-range today is 833, but that changes every time a candle gets put in. And also, we had this trigger and fire back here. That was a pretty good call out, right? It triggered as it was here, just sort of moving sideways. And then when it fired, we had this big move down. And then it's lost price ever since then. And recently we had a trigger, right? Trigger on these candles here. And now it's been firing, but it hasn't really moved anywhere. So is the move just delayed? Are we going to see another trigger and fire, and that's where the move will actually play out? Those are sort of the things that I'm watching for the time being on NIO. All right, folks, I hope that you have had a good trading week and that you finish off strong tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.